Good afternoon. Good morning to Professor Nicolas Desadlier in Belgium, distinguished dignitaries, esteemed speakers, Dr. Vasan Kumar Timakapura, Dr. Harish, Professor M.S. Benjamin, scholars, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege to welcome you to this one-day colloquium on the agriculture policy between European Union and India, organized by the Department of Studies in Law, University of Mysore, and National University of Advanced Legal Studies, NUALS, Kochi, India, and St. Louis University, Belgium. Agriculture stands as one of the crucial foundations for economic development, food security, and rural livelihoods across the globe. India and Europe, although diverse in socio-economics, and in terms of structure and policy mechanism, but share multiple common challenges, ranging from sustainability, climate change, subsidy reforms, market access, and protection of small and marginal farmers. With this, today we are privileged to have with us distinguished professors and distinguished speakers, such as Dr. Vasam Kumar Timakapura, agriculture scientist, and Professor Nicolas, Professor Mini, and Professor G.B. Reddy, Hon'ble Vice-Chancellor of NUALS, and Professor M.S. Benjamin, Chairman of Department of Studies in Law, Dean Faculty of Law, University of Mysore. Now, it is my privilege to invite Professor M.S. Benjamin to welcome the gathering, and we shall proceed the program formally. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bharat. Good afternoon to you all. It is with a great pleasure and a sense of purpose that I welcome you all to this important one-day colloquium on India-EU Agricultural Policy Frameworks, conducted by the Department of Law, University of Mysore, in collaboration with the NUALS, Kochi, Kerala, St. Louis University, Brussels, Belgium. Distinguished guest, Professor N.K. Lokanath, Hon'ble Vice-Chancellor, University of Mysore, in his absentia, Professor G. Reddy, sir, Vice-Chancellor, NUALS, respected speakers, Professor Nicolas D. Desadlier, Dr. Vasan Kumar Timakapura, Professor T.N. Venkata Reddy, invited delegates, esteemed faculty members, dear participants, and ladies and gentlemen. Agriculture is not an industry. It is a lifeline sector for sustainability of our rural areas. It is still backbone of the Indian economy. Agriculture policy is a framework established by the government to address issues relating to agriculture. It not only aims to boost agricultural production, enhance productivity, and improve farmers' livelihood, it also focuses on modernizing agricultural practices, environmental protection, agricultural research and development, and streamlining or removing administrative hurdles that hinder agricultural progress. In 2000, India launched a new agricultural policy with the target of achieving a more than 4% annual growth rate in agriculture. It provides for the use of modern technology, private investment, price protection under WTO, and sustainable development. According to WTO Trade Statistical Review, India is one of the top 10 global agricultural exporters. Major countries who import agri and allied commodities are Indonesia, China, Australia, United States, Afghanistan, Thailand, Sri Lanka, Nepal, and so on. India has signed agreements with number of regional trading blocs, SAFTA, South Asia Free Trade Agreement, ASEAN, and AFTA, Asian Pacific Trade Agreement. Recently, India signed trade agreements with the United Arab Emirates and Australia. Like India, European Union has also formulated EU Common Agricultural Policy, or in other words, CAT, with the objective of supporting the farmers, ensuring the food security, tackling climate change, improving rural economy by generating employment in farming and agri-food industries. India and EU both are known for food and culinary traditions in the world. Global trading producers and exporters of agri-food products. However, there are differences between India and EU agricultural policy. EU wants a free trade, whereas India a fair trade in agri products. If there is a cooperation or if the differences are settled amicably, then perhaps the future of global agri trade would be dominated by India and European Union. With this backdrop on the topic, on behalf of the Department of Law, University of Mysore, NUALS, the Kerala, St. Louis, I extend a warm welcome to the chief guest, Professor N.K. Lokanath sir, Hon'ble Vice-Chancellor, University of Mysore, Mysuru, Karnataka. Our guest of honor, Senior Professor G.B. Reddy, Honorable Vice-Chancellor, NUALS, Kochi, Kerala. Keynote speaker, Professor Nicholas D. Sedelier, Professor Jean Monnet Chair, St. Louis, Brussels, Belgium. I also heartily welcome distinguished speakers, Dr. Vasanta Kumar Timakapura, Agri-Scientist, Managing Director, Chief Scientific Officer, Green Life PropTech Private Limited, Mysuru, Karnataka. Professor T.N. Venkatareddy, University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru, Karnataka. Professor S. Mini, Professor of Law, NUALS, Kochi, Kerala. I also extend my sincere appreciation to the program coordinator, Mr. Syed Kudrat, for his dedicated effort in organizing this webinar. A heartfelt welcome to each and every participant and members of the organizing committee. Once again, I warmly welcome you all to this important colloquium or deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It is now my privilege to invite Professor G.B. Reddy to extend.
Sir has, I'm sorry to inform you that no, sir has some technical issues and he could not join.
Right. So we shall proceed. I may request Professor Nicholas D. Sedelier to address the gathering. Sir, are you able to?
Yes, hello.
Hello, sir. Before we proceed with your presentation, we would like to introduce you to our audience. Yes.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone present here and who have joined us virtually. It's my privilege and high honor to introduce our resource person for today's colloquium, Professor Dr. Nicholas de Sedelier. Professor Nicholas is a leading international authority in European Union and environmental law. Currently, he serves as full professor and holds the distinguished Jean Monnet Chair at UC Leuven, St. Louis, Brussels in Belgium. Additionally, he continues to share his expertise as part-time professor at the University Catholique de Lyon. His academic career is defined by a truly global perspective. He has been awarded several prestigious research chairs, notably serving as the Marie Curie Chair on Risk Assessment and Risk Management at the University of Oslo and Chemical Law. As a testament to his standing in the international legal community, Professor has been invited as a guest and visiting professor at the world-class institutions across 4 continents. These includes the Paris II, the Pace Law School in New York, the Wuhan Universities in China, the Australian National University, and also the Asian Institute of Technology. So beyond the classroom, professor's expertise is deeply rooted in practice and practical knowledge. He's a former barrister at Brussels Bar and has served as a consultant for European Commission's DG Environment. This has helped to shape the very policies and define the European environmental standards today. Further, he is also a prolific contributor to the legal literature, serving on the editorial and advisory boards of several esteemed journals, including European Journal of Risk Regulation and Journal of European Environmental and Planning Law. With the mastery of 5 languages and a career dedicated to rigorous analysis of international and comparative law, he brings a wealth of knowledge that is both theoretically profound and practically relevant for us today. Sir, we are honored to have you with us today. Sir, please.
Good Good afternoon. It's the morning here, and I've been a bit rushing, given that it's the end of the lectures, and so I had to hurry up to finish all my lectures Monday, Tuesday, and I did organize my first exam yesterday afternoon. So it's also a very intense period as far as I'm concerned. In addition to the exam, I'm really been working a lot on the climate change, the European climate change, and the environmental policies. And today, the European Commission, which is the executive of the EU, has been adopting a number of technical modifications to existing legislation, ranging from waste management to impact assessment, ranging from agriculture to sustainable finance. And these legislations are tremendously technical, and it just taking me much time to grapple with the forthcoming changes. Of course, the Commission is just an executive, and so these changes need to be adopted by the European Parliament in Brussels and by the Council of Ministers. So this is a very challenging period for me just before Christmas, but I feel very honored. I feel very privileged to take part for the fourth time since a year from now to the meeting that your university organize. So I'm facing and I wish to thank wholeheartedly Mr. Sayed for his cooperation, for the quality of the context, and this is a very helpful contact in your university. I would like to thank the Dean Benjamin for inviting me for the fourth time. So in a nutshell, I will try to summarize the main trends, the main structure of the common agricultural policy, and emphasize the interaction, the links with climate change, as well as with environmental issues. And as it was just stressed by the previous speakers, European farmers, but also European communities do face, in rural areas, do face changes ranging from pollution from pesticides, microplastic, to soil erosion, and to either severe floodings and severe droughts. And so just in this year, European countries have been losing more than 1 million hectares of forest. And the forestry sector is also part of the agricultural sector. Can you see my slides?
We're not able to see. Can you reshare?
I try and share.
Yes, we are able to see, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Given the sheer complexity of the matter,
Yes, sir,
yes,
focused.
it's fine. Yes. So given the sheer complexity of the matter, I will take time to comment. At the outset, agricultural practices in Europe are extremely diverse. So be it in terms of agricultural products or farm structures, the farming sector is highly heterogeneous, and it's characterized by significant economic disparities. So the biggest farms cultivating 1,000 hectares and getting most of the subsidies are mostly located in northern France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Germany, some part of Czechia. Whereas when one moves to the eastern side of Europe, it's mostly small farmers cultivating on a few hectares, and as a result, getting far less subsidies from the European Union. So these sectors, unlike the industrial sectors or the service sectors, is really characterized by significant economic disparities. So this is a picture I took in southern France in the province of Provence. This plant is used as a fragrance in perfumes. So when one flies over Europe, one is impressed firstly by the size of the forest, but also by the size of the farming activities, given that nearly half of the EU's territories is occupied by cultivation. And so European agricultural landscape have been largely influenced by a deliberate policy since 1962 of supporting agricultural production. And that's perhaps one of the key differences with India, is that the economic sectors has been supported for more than 63 years by European funds. Beforehand, in the 50s, after the end of the Second World War, national authorities were supporting farming. So the paradigmatic shift occurred in 1962, where the state authorities were replaced by European economic support. So these supports led to the mechanizations of agriculture, and the consequence has been a sharp decrease in the number of farmers and farmers. So in Belgium, we see progressively farmers getting older and not being replaced by younger farmers, smaller farms disappearing and being replaced by much huger farms. And so this is resulting in increasing the amount of land subject to intensive farming. And intensive farming, as a matter of course, is giving rise to soil erosion, to destruction of wildlife and wilderness, but also to spreading of chemicals. And so in different parts of Europe, the environmental reports highlight that the environmental situation is deteriorating. I will come back to the climate change issues. Since 20 years, farmers do face significant crisis, debt crisis. So the mechanizations of agriculture led farmers to obtain loans to purchase fertilizers, to purchase tractors, to increase their farms. And as a result, many farmers are highly indebted. In addition, there is this social crisis. Yes, 2 days ago, I was giving with my colleague lectures on labor law and the maximum hours per week in Belgium. So that's the Belgian law, labor standards. It's 40 hours a week. Many farmers in my countries work more than 75 hours a week. My nephew, Oddbjörn, is a farmer. He owns 33 cows, and he told me this summer that he was working on average 75 hours a week, given that he's expanding his farm. And so it means that the farming economy is far less attractive to young persons who prefer to have more leisure time and to be an employee in a municipality or in a bank. And so to make matters worse, to add insult to injury, the economic analysis in every country highlight that the average gross salary of farmers is nearly 35 to 55% lower than the industrial or the service workers. To make the issues even more complex, Europe has been facing, as you are aware, around 1997, 1998, the mad cow disease. It's facing also different pandemics that oblige the farmers to kill their pigs, their cows, their chickens. And so lately we have been facing avian flu that has been extremely destructive of the turkey and chicken production. And so last but not least, all these crises are compounded by exceptional environmental and climate crisis. It seems to me that many climatologists will reach next month the conclusion that 2025 has been the warmest year in Europe. But to go back to the EU treaties, it's a long story. It's also a bit a family story because my father was a director in the European Commission in DG Research. So since I'm a child, I'm really embedded in this European atmosphere. And in addition, I've been lecturing and working with EU issues since the beginning of my career in the 1980s. So just as a reminder, the EU started with a coal and steel union in 1950, and given the success, so that union was hammered between three countries: Germany, Italy, France, and the three Benelux countries: Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. So three very small countries and three much more important countries that were at war between 1939 and 1945. So the first union on steel and coal was a significant success because former enemies were just 15 years after the end of the war, to which India took part. And we should be grateful to the intervention of the Indian troops which liberate Europe. Led really to pave new ways. And just 7 years after the Steel and Coal Union, the 6 countries decided to embark on a new adventure in concluding a treaty on economics integration. So that's a 1957 country was called the European Economic Treaty. And so this European Economic Union, this European Economic Community became in the 1990s a union. So the European Union is a new concept, legally speaking. And in 1957, in this economic treaty, the authors, the 6 members, they decided to include an agricultural policy. So most of the provisions of 1957 related to agriculture have never been modified. And the goals of the agricultural policy or common agricultural policy, better known as CAP, its acronym, have never been modified. And so these goals must be understood in the light of the 1940s or the 1950s. Perhaps you do remember in London or in Birmingham or in Sheffield in 1946, 47 up to 1951, the food was rationed. So the British had to get the food, obtaining the foods thanks to tickets that were delivered by the state authorities. So many regions of Europe faced food shortage. And so as a result, consequently, the aim of the new policy was to increase productivity by promoting technical progress and ensuring optimal use of the factors in production, particularly labor. And so this has been a driving force. So the emphasis has been placed on productivity, and that led in the 1980s, for instance, to an overproduction of butter and milk. So the European Commission was facing with significant overproductions of dairy products that could not be placed on the market. The underlying idea was also somewhat social, to ensure a fair standard of living for the farmers, but also to stabilize markets. So farmers are likely to be economic victims of markets that are being somewhat shaped. Securing availability of supplies, which was a major concern, as I stressed, in the 40s and the 50s, but also to provide consumers with foods at reasonable prices. So at the end of the 19th century, food prices were very high. Food was often not avoidable, was too expensive for industrial workers. So the Common Agricultural Policy that started in 1962, so 63 years ago, has been playing a decisive role in reviving agricultural production after the Second War, ensuring at least food self-sufficiency for the 6 countries I mentioned, Italy, Germany, France, the Benelux, and progressively increasing the position of the European community as a main agri-food producers. And so that led, as you're aware, to a number of discussions later on at World Trade Organizations. So all in all, the common policy has ensured food security. And today, food security is compromised by the war in Ukraine. So the European Commission has been authorizing the import of Ukrainian wheat and corn without subjecting them to tariffs. And that led to a very significant opposition from Polish farmers. So Poland is a member state of the European Union, Ukraine is not. And so the import of cheaper wheat and corn from Ukraine led to destabilized Polish farmers whose whose production is much more expensive. So the common agriculture policy has always been a very controversial policy. On the one hand, countries such as France, which is originally really a farming nation, supported by Italy and by Spain, have been supporting a very strong common agriculture policy. But conversely, Germany, Great Britain, countries that were more industrialized, supported the curtailment of the common agriculture policy. So Europe has always been divided between more industrialized nations wishing to curtail, to diminish the spending for agriculture, whereas more agricultural nations have been supporting. And so the issues was already complex when we were 6 countries. Today, it's a club of 27 countries, and new countries might join in 4 or 5 years. That will be Albania and Montenegro, with a significant number of farmers. But that being said, the budget for the agriculture policy that accounted in the 1980s for 2/3 of the EU budget has steadily declined. And in 2007, that budget amounted to a 37 budget of the EU. There are a number of reasons for this. The EU is in charge of other policies. As a matter of fact, in the 1980s, the EU was not really in charge of foreign and defense policies. Today, in Brussels, what really matters is the foreign policy, or it's the global trade policy and the security and defense policy. So that explains that there are more expenses related to various policies, and that's leading to a diminution of the part of the budget dedicated to support farmer. But nevertheless, if I apply a financial criteria, it is still agriculture is still the EU most important policy. So this is far from negligible. In 2021, agricultural expenditure accounted for 33% of the budget. Of course, it's a diminution from the 37% in 2017, but that amount is still significant. So the budget is steadily shrinking, and the common agriculture policy has always been subject to reform. Given that it's a subsidized economic sectors, given the fact that there are fewer budgetary resources, the reforms are taking place in order to meet different challenges, be it fiscal challenge, be it today a climate challenge, or be it environmental challenge. So the policy has evolved over the years to meet all these challenges, but also to meet citizens' aspirations towards a greater involvement of industry and of agriculture to solve the environmental and climate issues we face. So perhaps this policy has been the EU policy which has been subject to major reform, to constant major reform, and each reform led to significant opposition between the member states, between the council representing the member states, and the European Parliament, within the European Parliament. So in 1 minute, a major demonstration will start close to my university, and 10,000 farmers and their trucks and their tractors will join the demonstration. The farmers are coming from all over Europe, and they will march to the buildings of the European Parliament and the European Council. And the aim of that demonstration is to protest against the conclusion of 2 trade treaties between the European Union and the 4 countries of Mercosur. That's Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and Argentina. And so farmers are claiming that they've been sacrificed to the German industries. These 2 treaties should offer the German car companies, the German chemical companies, huge opportunities to export their products to Brazil or to Argentina, but conversely, they will be cheaper beef, soybean, corn exported from South America to Europe. And so many farmers do fear that the conclusions and the entry into force of these 2 treaties will be an additional pressure, an additional economic pressure that cannot compete. So the beef producers in France or in Wallonia, in my country, perhaps cannot compete on the long term with much cheaper beef products from South America. So to continue, today the policy is subject to a legal act, which has been negotiated during 3 years between the states, the member states, and the European Parliament. So these negotiations were extremely complicated. Nevertheless, somewhat 4 years ago, on the 2nd of December, the Parliament and the Council of Ministers hammered a deal to reform the CAP. And so the legal act is called the regulations. The regulations is directly applicable, and it's regulation 2021 1115. So it's nearly 250 pages long regulations. The provisions are quite complex. There were a number of significant changes I will emphasize. The new CAP that will last until next year, 2027, 1st January 2027, aims at achieving different objectives. And so some of these objectives are the objectives that were laid down in 1957 in the European Economic Treaty. So productivity, labor fairness, allowing the consumers to purchase not cheap products, but economically affordable products. But contrary to the former regulation, 3 of the 10 objectives do relate to the environmental and climate issues. And so the regulation is not changing the ways in which the spending unfolds. And the spending unfolds, I will come back to this, according to conditionalities, to direct payments to farmers that are conditionalized, and spending targets in the field of rural development. In addition, the new policy is subject to 3 principles. a principle of subsidiarity. And that's a significant change because the powers have been concentrated in my hometown, Brussels, which is the seat of the European Commission. And so the whole policy has been under the control of the Department of Agriculture of the European policy. And they look very closely at the ways in which the budgets were spent. And so the subsidiarity means that member states could be better placed than the European Commission in Brussels to define, to fine-tune, to determine the support measures according to the regional or local circumstances and the specific nature of agricultural activities. So rice production in Catalonia, in Spain, is completely different from reindeer production in Lapland, in northern Finland or northern Sweden. So the contrast is somewhat significant. And so this subsidiarity should lead the authorities to take into consideration the social structure of agriculture, the structural and natural disparities between the different agricultural regions. In addition, a principle of flexibility. So the national authorities are called on to adopt their strategic plan. They did in 2024. And so according to the plan, the national ministry, so the French ministry or the German ministry, do manage the allocation of the budget for each measures. And what matters also, it's administrative simplifications. So many farmers argue that they are overwhelmed with too many administrative requirements to demonstrate that they comply with welfare standard, that they comply with water standard or with waste management standard, and they don't have the electronic equipment, or they are electronically illiterate. So many farmers in Europe, in particular in Central Europe or Eastern Europe, have never been in agricultural high school, so they cannot achieve this level of electronic literacy as one can encounter in major cities. So the fact of emphasizing the integration of environmental and climate concerns in the CAP in 2023 led to a position, not from every farmer, but from the farming organizations emphasizing the intensive production, contrary to the extensive production. And so there were significant farmer protests from January to June 2024, be it in Spain, in France, in Belgium. So tractors were blocking highways, were blocking CAPs, and farmers were putting much pressure on the European ministers and on the European MPs to modify this new CAP framework. And so that led the European Commission, the executive, to propose to the Parliament and to the Council of Ministers to water down the good agricultural and environmental condition requirements. And so that led also, so for instance, and I can come back to this in the course of the discussion, there was a requirement to obtain the direct payment that the farmer should keep on its land 4% of walls, of traditional fences, of marshlands, of peat bogs, of trees, to avoid completely naked soils that are subject to land erosion. And so this measure was also aimed at storing CO2 in the soils, at improving the state of biodiversity, but this measure was cancelled, was abrogated. To make matters worse, or to add insult to injury, the lawmaker decided to abrogate the controls and the penalties for the small farmers. And small farmers account for 65% of the beneficiaries of the funds. So that means that small farmers can give rise to very serious pollution in placing wrongly at the wrong place the pesticides, spreading wrongly the pesticides at the wrong time of the year, or in not controlling waste management, or in killing or destroying rare plants or rare birds or rare mammals. And so it means that there is no control. So the farmer is getting the money for safeguarding the environment, but there is no control whether he's doing the job. And so that did not lead to discussions. So now I'm coming to the structures of the financing. So the agriculture policy for somewhat 30 years is reckoning upon two kind of budgetary instruments. On the one hand, direct payments to farmers, which operate in the form of an income guarantee. So the payment is coming from EU funds. An EU fund is distributed to the different Ministry of Agriculture, to the 27 ministries. And then the ministerial department distribute the funds to the farmers according to the nature of the production and according to the number of hectares of farmlands are being cultivated. For the 7 years period, 2021 to 27, up to 95 billion euros. Of course, these funds are distributed among the 27 countries where the situation differ significantly. So the first pillar, so that encompass the direct funding of farmers, has been evolving from a system guaranteeing food price. So at the outset, the food prices were stabilized in order to sustain the farmers, and for 25 years, the system shifted into supporting directly the farmers regarding their production. So it's a direct aid to farmers, and it's calculated among other factors on the basis of the number of hectares cultivated, as this picture I took in not far from Brussels is highlighting. So this approach, this budgetary approach, has not been called into question, and perhaps won't be called into questions. It still remain the essential elements in ensuring fair income for farmers. So in order to obtain these funds, the farmers are subject to eco-conditionality measures. So they have to respect environmental, food safety, phytosanitary, and animal welfare standards. And in case they don't comply with these standards, most of these standards have been decided at EU level, they will penalize. So their payments won't be cancelled, but their payment will be reduced. So, for instance, a farmer operating a poultry farm in Western Flanders with 300,000 chicken, not complying with the regulation standards on the animal health of the chicken, will, in case its farm is being controlled, in case the civil servants realize that is not complying with the EU standards, the payment will be reduced. So, of course, the question is whether there's a sufficient number of controls, whether the controls are throughout, and whether the national department, the national agricultural department are ready to penalize the farmers. And there are too few studies to demonstrate this. Regarding the rural development, or the second pillar, this is a new approach, only 25 years, but that aims to use financial incentives to bring long-term changes in production structures, farm size, production methods, intensity, mechanization. So in case Belgian or Dutch farmers realize that they are spreading too much nitrates, which is a serious environmental issues in the region, then the programming to reduce the spread of nitrates will be supported not by the first pillar funds, but by the second pillar fund. So this fund is also playing a role, and accordingly it can support also financial projects. But as I explained a few minutes ago, the aim of the 2021 framework regulation was also to integrate into the agricultural objectives, but also in the funding of the farmers, these climate change and environmental sectors. And the complication is that these agriculture funds, so the rural development funds and the first pillar funds, they are encompassed within a multi-annual financial framework. So the EU is subject to an annual budget, but this annual budget is calculated according to a framework that applies for 7 years. So these frameworks provide for a financial outlook. It determines a long-term vision, and that's quite important for the farming sectors, is not to depend on budgetary decisions taken year by year. And the part of the EU budget dedicated to the natural resource and environment, which is actually not an environmental fund, but it's covering forestry, fisheries, agriculture, the management of natural resources. 30% of the EU budget is dedicated to the natural resource and environment. And so the question is, which environmental project is likely to support? This is a picture I took close to Brussels of lily. It's the symbol of the Brussels region, this flower. It was quite common in the marshland, in the city, in the Middle Age. And so the recitals, the preamble of the 2001 regulations sets a 40% climate change related action financing. But concretely speaking, or scientifically speaking, what does it mean? So according to the Commission, to reach this 40% objective, 35% of the funds obtained by the member state for rural development projects must be dedicated to climate change, biodiversity, resource use objective, and even animal welfare objective. In addition, with respect to the first fund, 25% of the allocation should be reserved for these eco schemes. And these eco schemes, these are the conditionalities. It means that the farmers can obtain the payment in as much as they comply with the regulations on pork welfare, chicken welfare, cattle welfare, water management. So the difficulties is to control, to assess whether whether such an amount of money is spent by the national department, national agriculture department, to specific project, which can be better manure waste management, better water quality management, better biodiversity protections of endangered species. And the few reports I read lately highlight that there is a lot of greenwashing. It's very difficult to determine whether the agriculture contribute really to storing the CO2 in the land, in case the emphasis is placed on very intensive agriculture, which is this part of which is the case in this part of Europe. There is much CO2 being emitted in the stratosphere. But with respect to the agriculture in southern Italy, in Romania, in Bulgaria, where there are only very small farms, these farming activities contribute to the destroying of climate change. So these pictures I took in rural areas in northern Belgium, Flanders, in southern Belgium, Wallonia, where the farmers do obtain, in addition to the EU eco schemes, support from the regional environmental departments to keep wildlife habitats. And so this is really highlighting, just in a small country as Belgium, the diversity of landscape, and this landscape has been shaped by agriculture. This is one of the criticisms of the European Court of Auditors. The European Court of Auditors is not based in Brussels, it's based 200 kilometers out of here in Luxembourg. And the court looked at the ways in which the budgets are being spent, and looking at the 100 billion of funds distributed during the 2014-2020 climate action. So that was under the former policy. They are taking the view that these funds had a little impact on agricultural emissions. So most mitigation measures have low potential to mitigate climate change, and the measures are not up to the challenges we do face. So this is a picture in one of the less populated departments of France, in the Ardennes. It's close to the Belgian border. And this is really highlighting a very traditional agricultural landscape that was quite common up to the 1960s, mostly with small cattle herds. But closer to Brussels, the landscape is completely transformed. So as a matter of fact, this is an ideal place to store the carbon, to maintain biodiversity, to enhance landscape diversity, but also to promote ecotourism. So what are the challenges? These challenges have always been numerous. Most of the challenges that were already present when the 2021 framework regulation was negotiated are still there. It seems to me that the biodiversity challenge is really worsening, and more species of birds, of mammals, of insects do disappear from farmland areas. Some farmland areas for chemicals are becoming really desert. Erosion is a very serious challenge. So it's not only some parts of Western Africa or Central India that's subject to erosion. Global food security is compounded by the war in Ukraine. And for the very first time, France is importing more food that it's exporting. So France has really been one of the major nations in Europe to export food and foodstuff. And today it's somewhat the contrary. And so the EU is really facing a crisis regarding its strategic autonomy. You are aware that the war in Ukraine that started in February 2022, nearly 4 years by now, has a major economic, social, political impact because it's next door. And next to it, with the new Trump administration, the realities have been changing. So the USA has really been the main pillar of the NATO structure, and the political agenda under the second Trump administration is completely different. And so the EU is subject to these geopolitical tensions, and there are all these agricultural protests. And when the symposium will come to an end, I will go and look at the demonstrations of farmers next door regarding the conclusions of these two treaties. So whether there will be a bright future for my nephew and its 33 cows, that remains to be seen. And so whether, as this picture I took in central Belgium highlights, is it sunshine and shadows? Thank you very much indeed for your attention.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for such a deliberative discussion. And we are really privileged to have you with us with this program, despite you were having busy schedule. Now, we're moving ahead. It is a great privilege to me to invite a distinguished speaker, Dr. Vasan Kumar Thimakapura, agri-scientist, managing director, chief scientist. And before we proceed, sir, with you, we would like to introduce you to our audience. Then we may proceed ahead. Srishti, you may proceed.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's now my distinct pleasure to introduce the speaker who is affectionately known as the plant doctor, Dr. Vasan Kumar Thimakapura. Dr. Thimakapura holds PhD in applied botany and biotechnology from the University of Mysore. With a career spanning over 40 years, Sir has established himself as an internationally recognized authority in plant pathology. Sir's scientific rigor is backed by extensive research in screening for complex fungal, bacterial, and viral diseases across vast range of vegetable crops, from tomatoes and okras to melon and sweet peppers. What makes Sir's journey truly remarkable is his transition from academia to the field. Driven by deep commitment to farmers' welfare, Sir chose to leave his role as a university professor to become a social entrepreneur. As a managing director and chief scientific officer of Green Life Corpotech, Sir has focused on creating social business models that prioritize farmer success over pure profit. A prime example of his innovation is the development of Python tea, an organic plant tonic that has significantly boosted both the productivity and quality of cultivation. So, Dr. Thimakapura's expertise is not limited by borders. Sir has traveled over 25 countries to study diverse agricultural systems and has represented India at prestigious international forums, including International Congress of Plant Pathology and also symposiums in Taiwan. Sir is also a celebrated author of his book titled Plant Doctor, and it has become an essential manual for farmers and students alike. It offers practical, field-tested guidance on diagnosing and managing plant health. And as a fellow of Indian Pathological Society, Sir is a rare individual who combines the precision of top tier scientist with the heart of social worker. Sir, we are really pleased to have you here with us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, your screen is shared, right?
It came, sir.
So that this is the PowerPoint, right?
Double click. Double click.
That
I'm sure.
here.
It came, sir. Display.
It's a little slow.
Share again. Just check whether it's share.
It's a little slow.
Okay. Shall I go? I'll try.
Connectivity.
No, it's yours.
Connectivity is slow.
Yeah.
How about share from Sir? Sir can share the. And we can.
Let's go.
No, sir, yes, you can go.
Sir, how about you screen share the
Mm,
screen and sir
this way,
will
right?
change.
I was doing the same. In face technical challenge last time. Share. And last
Very slow.
just a minute. Just a minute. You make it. So from here, slideshow.
This from yours?
Yeah.
Thanks. I'd like to put more connection. Yeah.
Just replace this. The arrow.
Okay. Sorry for that. Good afternoon, all of you. Professor Benjamin, Professor Nicholas, and Dr.
What's that?
Dr. Reddy and all others. Sorry for the technical snag. I'm Vasant Kumar Timkapura. I am going to present to you on the agriculture policy in India from populism to pragmatism. As you all know, food is the first and the most basic need, and the COVID and lockdowns has given to understanding that we can live without anything but not without food. And this food is produced not in the factories but in the farms and by the farmers. And it means no farmer, no future. So food is not just a thing to eat, but for a country, it can be a weapon. It is strength, it is peace, and it is freedom and sovereignty. And India faced a lot of food shortage problems before Green Revolution, and there was a situation called ship-to-mouth situation before 1960s, which I have personally experienced. And only when the ship arrived from the United States, we Indians had food on our plate. And when the Green Revolution happened, we were able to produce more food, and from 50 million metric tons, we have been able to produce more than 330 million metric tons as of today. And now even the GDP level is somewhere between 70 to 20%. And we have reached from ship to mouth situation to self-sufficiency. And there has been a quantum leap in agricultural production, not only in grains, pulses, oil seeds, and even in horticultural producers like vegetables and fruits. And you can see not just green color, but all the colors of the rainbow. And I call it as rainbow revolution, but not only in the supermarkets,
but even on the streets in India, we can find all the colors of the rainbow. And we have, and these colors are, these colors mean good health of the people, not only food security, even the nutritional security we have been able to achieve. And because of this increase in production, not only in food crops, but also in vegetables and fruits, the government could bring in the food security bill and the right to food scheme act. And today, more than 50% of the people are involved in agriculture. And we are number one in many crops, and we are the second largest producer in rice, wheat, groundnut, etc. But when the farmers are struggling in the fields, in the sun, in the rain, and trying to feed us more than 140 crore people in this country, he is in deep distress. So farmer suicides are on rise as per the IB report. And when we look at the reasons for the dismal situation, we know that weather vagaries, the Indian agriculture is nothing but gambling with monsoon and climate change. And not only with that, but also with pests and diseases and abiotic stresses like drought and then salinity and so on. And the cost of cultivation has increased terribly. And farmers, because of lack of their financial literacy, they divert their loan amount obtained from the banks to various other unproductive uh, reasons. And the prices are highly volatile here. And of course, in many countries also it happens. And in India, middlemen are actually fleecing the farmers, and money lenders are also squeezing the farmers. And also, in addition to all these, even agricultural policies of India are not in favor of farmer. In addition to this, as per my personal experience, the lack of knowledge of scientific cultivation is one of the most important but highly ignored fact. And also the lack of financial literacy also leading farmers into financial distress. And modern agriculture today, we have got so many technologies available at our hand, but modern farming is highly knowledge intensive and highly investment intensive. Because of the lack of these knowledge or access to the knowledge, the farmers is facing the reduced productivity. Because of that, the profitability is highly diminished, and it is leading to lowest repaying capacity, and farmers are defaulting on the debts. This is because not production-wise, India is doing very well, but when it comes to the productivity per acre, per unit area, per unit input, per unit time and effort, the India is far less than world average. Forget about it is not at all comparable to US and China. So this is where we need to address the problem. But we have the challenge because we have been the number one in terms of world population, and it is ever increasing. So it means that we need to produce more and more from less and less of less land, less water, less labor, less chemicals, and at less cost. So that is the biggest challenge our country is facing, not just the farmer. So there is an Indian agricultural policy paradox. Agriculture remains the backbone of the Indian economy and society, not only today, but ever since. And even up to the so much of progress in terms of manufacturing and service sector, and our GDP is very high, but agriculture is suffering. And though it is providing livelihood to more than 50% of the population and ensures food security for over 140 crore people. Yet, paradoxically, the average Indian farmer continues to struggle with low profitability, climate risks, market volatility, and policy uncertainties. While India has achieved remarkable success in food production since the Green Revolution, the focus of agricultural policy has largely remained on short-term welfare measures rather than long-term empowerment of farmers. So farmers are not at all being empowered actually. So we are focusing only on the short-term welfare measures. The policies are often framed from urban or bureaucratic perspectives with limited grounding in field realities. Most of our politicians, most of our bureaucrats, and even the scientists, they don't have much of the field knowledge, what is actually happening on the farmers' fields. The central question therefore arises, are Indian agricultural policies designed to empower farmers or merely to manage rural distress? That is the big question we should ask. So the Indian agricultural policy has traditionally relied heavily on subsidies for fertilizers, electricity, irrigation, and seeds. So while subsidies initially helped boost production, their indiscriminate continuation has resulted in soil nutrient imbalance, decline in soil organic carbon, overuse of urea and water, and stagnation of productivity. So subsidies without scientific guidance often lead to ecological and economic damage rather than sustainability. So crop insurance and disaster relief mechanisms suffer from multiple shortcomings in the present policies, like delayed and inadequate compensation, low trust among farmers, high premium burden, and administrative complexity. As a result, farmers remain vulnerable to droughts, floods, pest outbreaks, and disease epidemics. So weak agricultural extension and knowledge transfer is the biggest gap I have found myself personally. And India doesn't suffer from lack of agricultural technologies, but from lack of effective translation of science to farmers' fields. Because our universities and institutions and even the private organizations have generated so much of knowledge and technologies, but we have failed to reach it to the farmer in a very understandable knowledge to the farmer. Market inefficiencies and value chain inequity. Farmers are the primary producers, but the least beneficiaries in the agricultural value chain. That is the point to be noted by everyone. The challenges include limited MSP coverage because only 12 to 14 crops are covered under MSP. And price volatility is the biggest problem. Exploitation of intermediaries, poor post-harvest infrastructure. This discourages diversification and innovation at the farm level. So the weak agricultural extension and knowledge transfer is the key. What I am going to emphasize today in my presentation is that public extension systems are overstretched, while farmers increasingly depend on unverified advice from input dealers or social media today, and mainly from the input dealers only. So the modern or young farmers are using the social media for their knowledge, and they are not at all verified and they are not at all reliable. So according to me, the missing farmer's right is right to scientific agriculture knowledge. So the current farmer movements actually focus on scientific pricing, loan waivers, and crop loss compensation. But they ignore the root cause. The farmers themselves don't know what exactly they need. And they have the right to knowledge, but they never have realized it and they have never demanded for that. So I emphasize that the farmers should understand, farmer leaders should understand, the whole policy system should understand that lack of scientific cultivation knowledge is the real problem, and we should try to address that problem. So when we are demanding for scientific pricing, the farmers are fighting for scientific pricing, but it is really meaningless unless the crop is grown scientifically. So we need to recognize the right to scientific agricultural knowledge as a farmer's right. Farmers should have continuous access to scientific guidance, soil and nutrient literacy, diagnostic skills for diseases, pests and deficiencies, and integrated pest management and eco-friendly protection methods, and market awareness and post-harvest knowledge. So knowledge as the first subsidy. So if you are planning to give subsidies, you should give the subsidy in the form of knowledge. The most effective support to farmers is knowledge, and a pragmatic policy must prioritize free, unbiased, science-based advisory services, village-level crop diagnostics, crop-specific decision support systems, and a knowledgeable farmer requires fewer subsidies and makes better production decisions. The soil and plant health as national assets. We need to consider the soil and plant health as national assets. Soil and plant health must be treated as strategic national resources. And restoration of soil organic carbon, we need to focus on. Balanced plant nutrition beyond nitrogen, phosphorus, and potash. We need to consider the secondary nutrients like calcium, magnesium, and sulfur, in addition to the micronutrients. Emphasis should be given on disease prevention rather than curing the diseases. So healthy soils and plants form the foundation of sustainable productivity. We all know that. And the present fertilizer subsidies are not really scientific. So as a scientist, I have noticed that India subsidies structure has unintentionally distorted farmers' behavior. And when urea is extremely cheap and potassic and phosphatic fertilizers are costly, farmers naturally choose more nitrogen and less potassium or phosphorus. And you can see in this picture how there is drastic imbalance in fertilizer usage. So the 50% of the total fertilizers is urea. So, and potash, when you compare to urea, MOP is only 9% of the total fertilizers we are using in India. So this is where the imbalance has happened. And looking at the latest subsidy system, nutrition-based subsidy, potash only 2 rupees 38 paisa per kg, whereas for urea it is 43 rupees and phosphorus it is 43.6 rupees. So that is where the imbalance has happened, and farmers are hesitant to use potash because it is very expensive. It is the most important nutrition required by every crop. So when you use more of urea, that is more of nitrogen, the excessive vegetative growth will happen. So here the crop looks lush, but they are very weak internally. It leads to higher vulnerability to pests and diseases, and it means more pesticide usage and yield instability, especially under stress like drought, salinity, and diseases. And soil health is declining because of imbalanced nutrition. Soil organic carbon is depleting, and nutrient mining is increasing. So it is also causing environmental damage like nitrate leaching and water pollution. And it is leading to economic loss. Farmers spend more later on disease and pest control. When they save on potash fertilizers, they spend more on disease and insect control. In short, India has moved from under-fertilization to misfertilization. So nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium have complementary roles. Nitrogen is for growth, phosphorus is for energy and roots, potassium is for immunity, stress tolerance.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Yeah.
So potassium actually is the most important nutrition in terms of provider of immunity, stress tolerance, and quality of produce. So ignoring one is like feeding a child only rice without vegetables or proteins. The growth happens, but immunity collapses. This is what exactly is happening in our crops. So the current system is actually rewarding the excess and penalizes the balance. To correct this, actually subsidies must shift from products to nutrient-based equity and encourage site-specific nutrient management, promote soil testing and micronutrient inclusion, and support organic carbon building practices like compost, cover crops, biostimulants, oil cakes, etc., etc. And farmers should be empowered with knowledge, not just cheaper inputs. So the larger impact is fixing this will not only improve productivity, but also it because of the when you correct the balance of the fertilizers, it will lead to reduction in chemical pesticide dependence. It will improve farmer profitability. It will enhance national food and nutrition security, and it will restore degraded soils and ecosystems. And this is one of the simplest reforms that can create largest ecological and economic impact. If we correct the policy, farmers will correct the soil. When soil is balanced, agriculture becomes sustainable. Fertilizers are not the enemy, actually. Ignorance and policy distortion are the enemy. So another one is plant disease management. It is a missing policy dimension. Plant diseases, especially viral diseases and root rots and wilts, cause enormous economic losses because we don't have any practical solutions to contain these diseases. Farmers are facing huge losses because of these kind of diseases. However, agricultural policy has largely ignored virus disease management, curative plant health solutions, and integrated pest and disease management. Soil health and plant health must be recognized as a critical component of national food security. So another one is the policy on electricity. Many states are giving subsidized electricity, or in Karnataka, we are giving free electricity to farmers. But but it is not actually helping the farmers. Free electricity without quality and timing has resulted in inefficiencies and farmer hardship. A pragmatic policy should ensure reliable daytime power supply, promotion of solar pumps, micro irrigation, and water budgeting. Resource efficiency is more important than free resource access. Why power timing matters? Because irrigation is time critical for crops. Watering at the right stage impacts the yield. Unpredictable night supply disrupts from operations. And sleepless nights waiting for power, nighttime struggles for farmers, frequent accidents in darkness, mental stress and poor quality of life. And more than that, high incidence of snake bites during irrigation, increased risk of injuries and fatalities, and safety ignored in the current power policy. So disparity in power access. Industries receive reliable daytime supply. Farmers depend on leftover off-peak hours. Shows misplaced priority despite farmers feeding the nation. The myth of free electricity. Actually, it is not free. Farmers pay through risks. Grid stress and transfer failures increase, and free supply doesn't equal reliable supply. So what farmers actually need is reliable daytime power for irrigation, fair and affordable for not merely free. Dignity and safety in farming operations should be taken into consideration. And solar agriculture it is the best sustainable solution. Daytime irrigation without grid dependency reduces government subsidy burden in long run. Clean energy enhances economic resilience. So the subsidies on solar pumps should be enhanced. The smart subsidy support should be capital subsidy for solar pumps, encourage micro irrigation, especially for drip and sprinkler systems, and support renewable power generation by farmers themselves. So there are many economic and social benefits like higher crop productivity, with the timely irrigation, reduced accidents and health burden, and energies self-reliance for farmers and the nation. So the national action plan should be dedicated agricultural feeders. It should have dedicated agricultural feeders and solar pump promotion and financing, farmer-centric power reforms. The message is that don't just give free electricity to farmers, give them the right electricity at the right time, because their life is worth more than their vote. So coming to insurance, farmers are not beneficiaries. They are producers, they are providers of food to the nation. India survives because its farmers feed more than 1.4 billion people in this country. Any support to them is an investment in food security, not an act of generosity. Paying 6,000 rupees per year under PM Kisan and calling it Samman feels contradictory when a farmer sustains multiple lives every single day. So there should be agriculture disaster management fund rather than such kind of freebies. A fair and dignified alternative to PM Kisan and crop insurance, because for any nation, food is strength, food is peace, food is freedom, and food is sovereignty. So why current schemes fail farmers? Rupees 6,000 per year under PM Kisan is symbolic. It doesn't rescue farmers after crop loss. PMFBY asks farmers to pay premiums, but delays and rejections erode trust. Funds are spread across all farmers, even those unaffected. Result, no real security, no real justice to the farmers. So the smarter and fairer model is government funded, no premium agriculture disaster management fund is the smarter and fairer model, where it is government funded, no premium from farmers, compensation only to affected farmers, input aid in the form of seeds, nutrients, soil and crop health products, digital and satellite-based loss assessment, and immediate relief and recovery support. Compensation for crop loss is not charity, it is the nation's responsibility. Crop losses are systemic risks. Government must shoulder them. Weather vagaries, droughts, floods, pandemics of pests or viruses, they are beyond the control of farmers. Just as the government provides insurance for banks, corporates, and industrial infrastructure, it must provide full crop risk coverage. Farmers should not be paying premium for something they didn't cause. So, universal crop insurance where government pays 100% of premium, claims are fast, transparent, technology enabled, compensation equals real production cost plus reasonable profit. This alone can prevent farmer suicides, restore confidence, and ensure continuity of food production. Farmers must not be treated as receivers. They are not beggars, but they are our partners. Policies should shift from subsidy mindset to productivity mindset. Instead of 6,000 rupees cash transfer, imagine 10 to 15,000 per year per farmer on crop insurance, guaranteed cost plus price, free scientific crop management training, and residue-free and export-oriented cultivation support. This transforms respect into real opportunity. The role of grassroots innovators and the private participation is ignored in this country. India's wealth of grassroots innovators and farmer-tested solutions. Policies must encourage non-inclusive technology dissemination, support field-proven innovations, reduce regulatory barriers for genuine innovators, and innovation must be nurtured where it emerges at the farmer's field. So policy recommendations from my personal side is that establish a national farmer knowledge vision, create an agriculture disaster management fund, set up a plant health authority of India, develop taluka level crop diagnostic laboratories, reform power and water delivery systems, and recognize and scale successful grassroots extension models. So I am not talking from my mind, but from my experience. Whatever suggestions I have given, they are really practical, not just theoretical. And to support my view, I want to show what I have done on the field in my limited capacities. So here is a village which is very close to the backwaters of a river, Kaveri, but it is totally a dry village. We selected this, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. Cities are so near, but yet too far. That is the kind of situation this village was facing. And it was all empty fields and hungry people. So they were following very primitive methods of cultivation. They were growing a monocrop like chrysanthemum, and they didn't have enough water. And at a time, they could grow only 4 to 500 plants of chrysanthemum. And because of monocropping, there were severe soil-borne diseases, virus diseases, and so on. Because of this, the yields were so minimum. They didn't know what kind of fertilizers to apply and method of application, nothing they knew. And there was no source, even with the enough water, their yields were the minimum. But because of our intervention and our knowledge transfer and input transfer and credit system, there was a huge revolution of the floral revolution. And the farmers, we brought smiles on the face of the poor farmers. And see, once abandoned village is full of life now. You see the difference between 2011 and 2025. And the village is growing because of reverse migration of youths from cities back to their village. And it's all the fields are covered and they are all green. And the income of these farmers has increased by 10 times, not just 2 or 3 times, but 10 times. So this has attracted the attention of media, and it has appeared in various magazines and newspapers. And this is a really workable solution what we have provided. And because of this, there are many benefits to the farmers. There is economic benefit, employment benefit, environmental benefit, emotional benefit, and empowerment. So we have generated so much of employment in those villages, not only for the people of that village, but surrounding 5 to 6 villages, people come here to work in the field. So Indian farmers do not seek charity. They seek dignity, knowledge, and fair opportunity. Agricultural policy must evolve from short-term to long-term empowerment.
Absolutely.
Food is not just an economic commodity, as I said. I repeat again, it's a weapon, strength, peace, freedom, and sovereignty. So a pragmatic agricultural policy must therefore be science-driven, farmer-validated, outcome-oriented, and nation-centric. Only then can Indian agriculture achieve true sustainability and prosperity. So in conclusion, again, I should emphasize that agricultural policy in India should change from populism to pragmatism. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your contribution for today's program and your contribution to the farmer's life. And this is really revolutionary.
Thank you.
Now, it is our privilege to invite our another distinguished speaker, Dr. T.N. Venkata Reddy, sir, from Agriculture University, Bangalore. Sir, before we proceed with you, we would like to introduce you to our audience. Then we proceed with our discourse.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my privilege to introduce a veteran leader in the field of agricultural economics and agribusiness management, Professor Dr. Venkata Reddy. Dr. Reddy is a retired professor from University of Agricultural Sciences, Bengaluru. Sir comes from a humble agricultural background from Kolar district. Sir has dedicated his entire career to the empowerment of farming communities and the modernization of agricultural marketing systems. Dr. Venkat Reddy's contributions to agricultural marketing and farmer producer organization, that is FPOs, are widely recognized across India. He is notably the founder, mentor, and advisor of the Srinivaspura Mango Farmer Producers Company, which is significant institutional development for farmers in Karnataka. Sir has also held a distinguished position of chair professor for the Karnataka State Agricultural Marketing Board and was instrumental in assisting Government of India in drafting rules for farm laws of 2020. Dr. Reddy's influence extends far beyond the university campus. Sir has served as a member of 12th Plan Evaluation Team for Indian Coffee Board and Quinquil Review Team for the Indian Institute of Seed Research. Sir has traveled 27 countries across 4 continents, bringing a global perspective into local agricultural challenges. As a master educator, Sir has delivered over 800 lectures at national training programs and has also been nominated twice for the ICAR Best Teacher Award. Throughout his career, Dr. Venkat Reddy has mentored over 150 postgraduates and PhD students, shaping the next generation of agricultural scientists and leaders. His commitment to social progress is further reflected in his decisions to institute an endowment merit scholarship specifically for rural girl students pursuing agribusiness. Today, Dr. Reddy continues to serve as a visiting faculty at the Institute of Agribusiness Management and acts as vital resource person for startups and entrepreneurship programs nationwide. Sir, we are truly fortunate to learn from a scholar like you and we are eager to hear from you, sir. Sir, please, the floor is yours.
Milan, unmute him.
Yeah.
Sir, you're not audible.
Sir, we are not able to hear you. Just mute and mute once again. Yes.
You have to unmute.
Yes, you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
At the outset, I thank Dr. Vasant Kumar Hasmi and Mysore University for giving me the opportunity to be with you to share some information and knowledge of my 50 years academic experience in the field of agriculture and agriculture marketing. Now, can I share my slides, Hasmi?
Yes, sir, you can share.
Share option is not there.
You, sir, please check in the bottom of the screen.
So, gone to the full screen, then share.
Yes, sir.
Now share.
Yes, double click, it will come.
Double click.
Going to come.
Not
Yes.
being shared.
Now, right, you go to your slides. Where is your PPT? Open the PPT.
Okay.
Yes, we are able to see your PPT.
You can see the slide.
Yes. Only
Okay.
thing is that you maximize your screen, it will come. Yes.
Okay. I will go to the slideshow.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this session. And as you are aware, I am from Agriculture University. If you look at Indian agriculture, it is problem of scarcity during early independence or just before independence. Problem of scarcity, and nearly 40 lakhs people died out of starvation in Great Famine of Bengal. Look at the major challenge what we are facing today is problem of plenty. Problem of plenty so much, whatever we produce, we cannot process or market. Due to crash in price, farmers throw the produce on the roads and roadside. This typical example of where farmers thrown tomato on the roadside in Kolar district of Karnataka, the biggest tomato market in India and Asia, in Kolar district. So even food grains, we have surplus stocks, no warehouse to store. And we have 7,300 regulated markets or APMCs across the country to handle this surplus production what we have. So there is a need for policy change in agriculture for food sector. On the other hand, look at the land ownership pattern. 84% of Indian farmers' size of holding is less than 2 hectares. And farmers get hardly 30% of the consumer rupee, indicating the inefficient marketing system. majority of the times, what they produce, what they invest, they don't get back. Keeping this in view, Government of India, and another important thing, India being a federal structure country, agriculture is the state subject. Agriculture is state subject. Each state will have their own policy, agriculture policy, and government of India will have a different policy. So you cannot expect uniform agricultural policy across the country. And Government of India is there to supplement, help, address to the special occasions in agriculture, maybe establishing food parks, extending subsidies, but they cannot legislate. And all of you know what happened when Government of India intervened in 2020 to coming out with a marketing policy of one country, one market, one nation, one market. And farmers themselves were against this policy. But if you look at majority of the agricultural policies, they mainly focus on enhancing food security, improving farmers' income. Hardly they get 30%, particularly perishables. Whatever consumers, you and we pay, 30% goes to the farmers and 70% to the intermediaries and logistic expenditure. So basically promoting sustainable practices, what Dr. Vasant Kumar was talking, sustainable because of environmental degradation. Even they have brought in as another policy through legislation called Environmental Protection Act, Food Safety and Standards Act. Many laws are brought in, but finally what we are following, practicing is biggest challenge. Food security, we have surplus food. In fact, 350 million metric tons food grains we produce, and much more than that fruits and vegetables we produce. But you look at the consumer behavior of common Indians. They are shifting from cereal consumption like wheat and paddy to milk, meat, vegetables, fruits. So there is a need to refocus our policy issues to encourage this subsector of agriculture. So food security, we have crossed. We have surplus food, but unfortunately, still we have that food subsidy, free food, and how to address this is biggest challenge as a policy matter. And farmers' welfare is another objective of agriculture policy, particularly encouraging farmers, helping farmers in crisis, floods, crop loss, droughts, and price crash. And in this direction, crop insurance, minimum support price, or the policy frameworks introduced by Government of India, though agriculture is the state policy. So sustainable agriculture, there, as Vasant Kumar was specifically talking about soil erosion, pollution, and the sustainable environment friendly agriculture is need of the hour. And in this direction, organic farming is being encouraged to reduce the consumption of chemical fertilizers by separate policy of the government. Organic farming, creating a separate brand for organic food, particularly to the overseas market, where there is a demand. And even they have declared Sikkim as organic state agriculture without no chemicals are used in this state. Added to this, technology plays a major role, and modern technology is the buzzword in agriculture. But at the same time, say for example, European Union, America, and China widely accepted the GM crops, introducing scientific innovation to address to the nutritional security. But in India, except BT cotton, the policy prohibits introduction of this biotechnology GM crops. Whereas the USA insists on exporting their maize and other food crops to India, which are GM crops. See, the contradiction of policies. Government of India not allowed GM crops to grow in India by the Indian farmers. US government wants to export their maize and other even milk to India, which are GM crop based. Clash of interest led to the trade war and conflict. The US government is imposing tax on our exports to the tune of 50%, 100%. And in spite of WTO agreement on agriculture and domestic market access, they are not allowing and throwing our global understanding of agreement on agriculture to the dustbin. And policies and practices are different. So, input productivity, value addition, land reforms, research and innovation, environmental protection are the key components of our agricultural policy, whether it is state government or central government in India. Majority of the state governments have different state policies. And say, for example, agriculture export policy is one of the important policy enacted by Government of India. Every 5 years, they amend this, encourage Indian farmers to capture the global avenues opportunities, knocking at the doors after WTO and liberalization. And look at what is the share of India in the global trade, overall trade. Less than 2% of the global trade is India's share. And fortunately, India's share in the global agriculture trade is 2.5%. And the agriculture export policy introduced by Government of India is praiseworthy, and slowly we are entering into the market, except the blocked markets. Say, for example, USA blocks Indian mango exports without irradiation treatment. Japan market insists on heat water treatment. European Union wants sanitary and phytosanitary Eurogap certification. So when it comes to the question of agriculture policy, Government of India has come out with a good policy, revising every 5 years, taking into consideration the contemporary problems that arises in trade and commerce between the countries. So agriculture export policy aimed at doubling the agriculture exports and integrating Indian farmers with global value chains. And as a result, you can see, as a policy support, there is a product called gherkin. India's share in the global market is 40%, lion's share. This we were able to achieve due to two reasons. No restrictions on export of these gherkins, and permitting contract farming. By law, several state governments and Government of India allowed contract farming to enter into the growers, procure directly from the farmers without middlemen by exporters, no need to go to market. And that is another big story. India have 7,300 APMCs, regulated markets. The policy of majority of the state governments is all producers are compulsorily supposed to sell in the APMCs. And on the other hand, conflicting policy is encourage exports. How an exporter, India, can achieve efficiency, competitiveness in our exports without allowing them to directly source the produce, quality produce from the farmers, instead of depending on fifth man or sixth man in the supply chain and value chain. So Maharashtra is leading in the country with a policy to encourage exports, and they are leading exporters of onion, pomegranate, banana, grapes, and one more product. So banana. This policy issues encouraging not the subsidy, but it is the quality. So agri export policy introduced by Government of India harnesses export potential of Indian agriculture through suitable policy instrument to make India global power in agriculture and raise farmers' income. And Fortunately, India have trade surplus with all countries in the world, including China. What we export is more, what we import is less, only for agriculture commodities. I am not talking of overall all commodities. Agriculture commodities, what we are exporting is more, what we are importing is less. Though we are importing, it's less than what we export. We have trade surplus, courtesy our foreign trade policy of Government of India. Coffee, 80% of Indian coffee we are exporting, and only 20% is consumed, and the policy, no restrictions as such. When it comes to the food grains, there is some restrictions whenever the price of domestic price of commodities increase, they ban export. This is the policy of the Government of India. Say, for example, if onion price is doubled to 50 rupees or 100 rupees, overnight they ban the export of onion. How reliable our Indian trade is. Buyer from Dubai or Malaysia or Europe, they want continuous supply, and our credibility is damaged. This abrupt change in the policies by the government adversely affects our country's rating in the reliability. And come to another important achievement of Government of India through this export policy, Basmati rice. India is #1 in the global Basmati export, and it almost 40 to 45% of our Indian the Basmati global trade is owned by India. Diversify our export basket without depending Another best example where government encourages our exports, even we import cashew nut. India is biggest exporter of cashew, biggest importer of cashew, biggest consumer of cashew. We export of Indian product, we import from African countries for domestic needs, and we consume highest cashew. So export, import, domestic consumption is part of the policy and encouraged by the good export policy. To promote novel indigenous organic produce, ethnic traditional, say for example, GI tag products for food products, agriculture. This GI Products Act legislation encouraging Indian products to create its own identity across the world and India and different. India is like a whole of European Union, 140 crores. Each state is like a country in Europe. But if you look at diversification of crop composition, we grow everything in India, grows everything that is grown in the world. And we are capturing the market courtesy export policy, particularly agriculture. And in the recent past, they are focusing on organic food products and ethnic products from India, traditional and non-traditional agri products exports. To provide institutional mechanism for pursuing market access, tackling barriers, deal with sanitary and phytosanitary issues, export policy promotes. Say, for example, I quoted hulls in export. India is #1 in the world in production of mango, but we are not #1 exporters due to various reasons. So this export policy comes out with different schemes to encourage Indian farmers to capture the market. So export policy is one of the key promoter of Indian exports. To double the share in the world agri exports is the objective. And as I was talking about, India is #1 in the world in the production of this gherkin, and we are 40% is share of India in the global trade, targeting USA and European Union countries. More so after a recent signing of agreement, free trade agreement with UK and India, virtually India become part of UK. India becomes part of UK. How it is possible? Because less barriers policy, see, bilateral agreement entered between UK and India opened up lot of avenues for Indian exports, and this particular gherkins, new gold, India is leader in the world. So policy initiative can change the how we fare in the global market. Another policy issue initiated by Government of India by a central legislation is Warehouse Act 1961. As you are aware, there is no quality warehouses in the country. To encourage better warehousing, scientific warehousing, and declaring warehouse receipt as a negotiable instrument, allowing farmers to pledge their produce through this warehouse receipt transactions, the farmer's share in the produce consumer rupee is increasing. So warehouse receipt is declared as a negotiable instrument to avail pledge loan, and it is giving very good result. You can see one of the best scientifically established warehouse as per the norm stipulated in the Warehouse Act 1961 of Government of India, and each state government have their own state warehousing facilities. But what you see here is a warehouse in Coorg where coffee is grown and high value crops, and we export 80%. And there is this supply chain, including warehouse, is supported by the government. Another policy change, we can say revolution in trading by introducing online trading, online platform to buy and sell the commodities across the country through e-trading, online trading, digital marketing, even allowing multinational companies to enter India in wholesale and retail is another policy. In fact, when Government of India amended its act, permitting 100% foreign direct investment in wholesale business, majority of the regulated market traders went on strike under the grounds that this entry of the MNCs in trading of agriculture commodities, food commodities will take away their business. But it's not happened. Now they are coexisting. For example, German company Metro Cash and Carry and Walmart entered India both in wholesale and retail. Still, our Indian retail system and consumer purchase behavior patronizes. There is a scope for everybody to survive in the food industry. And in fact, the government looks into the welfare of everyone. There is a place for everybody to live in this country. Policy will change. And this quotation, one country, one market, is not practically possible because of diversity of rules, regulations, acts, policies from one state to another state. Thanks to amendment of GST, goods and services tax, at least these taxes are same. And there is a provision that if some product is, say, agriculture commodity, food commodity is traded in one APMC in one state, no need to pay market fee or tax on that commodity in some other state when it is traded for the second time. Another major thrust is transportation. So coming to the unified market platform through e-trading, ENAM, Electronic National Agriculture Market. Hitherto, only physical trade was there, and each state has their own regulated market policy and the legislation. For example, Karnataka Agricultural Produce Marketing Regulation Act 1966 is the legislation that is in practice in Karnataka. You go to Maharashtra, it is a different legislation. So when the commodity wants to move from one place to another place, from one state to another state, say buyer is from Bhopal, seller is from Salem, they meet on online platform where the state government of Tamil Nadu and Madhya Pradesh will act. There is a need for national agency, national legislation to support, regulate, promote, help, and ease of doing trade and commerce in agriculture commodities, and ENAM is the solution. And you can see this electronic national agriculture market linked to APMC, managed by Small Farmers Agri Consortium of Department of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare, Government of India, Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare. And this national agriculture market is relatively, though we cannot expect overnight farmers opting for digital marketing, entering into the online platform selling, there is a lot of improvement to break this dominance monopoly of traders in buying and selling of commodities in the local market, where by opening up traders across the country to enter into this online platform and buy and break the dominance. Lot many examples, live examples. The policy makes the difference. You can see the CNM markets are operating across the country linked to the markets. To promote uniformity in agriculture marketing, streamlining procedures across the integrated markets, removing information asymmetry between buyers and sellers, promoting real-time price discovery based on actual demand and supply is promoted by ENAM. So e-tendering, even if you look at age-old practice of tendering, open auction, to buy a product, traders used to go and participate physically, quote the price, shout, and come to an understanding and rig the prices, cheat the farmers is a common phenomenon across the country. To eliminate this system of rigging, price rigging, the progressive states like Karnataka, Maharashtra, and other places introduce e-tendering process, where the prospective buyers can, through this platform, they can quote the price without option. So even online spot exchanges are introduced. For the first time in 2014, government of Karnataka came out with a policy framework amending the existing Agricultural Produce Marketing Regulation Act, popularly known as APMC Act, amended. Online spot exchange was introduced for the buying and selling of 2 red gram in Gulbarga in Karnataka in 2014. Say, Tur board or this Tur board of government of Karnataka helped manage to establish this exchange in collaboration with NCDX, National Commodity Derivatives Exchange, and helped the small farmers. This particular banner speaks in vernacular language, Karnataka Kannada language, whereas a farmer with 2 quintals of produce and several such farmers, as I have already told, 84% of the farmers size of holding is less than 1 hectare, 2 hectares, and average per capita land size of holding is less than 1 hectare. So what marketable surplus they have, what quality and uniformity they can achieve. So the government of Karnataka encouraged them to pool their produce, clean the produce, grade the produce, store in the APMC, get the warehouse receipt, participate in this online platform, postpone the sales, split, and realize better income. So even rural India is empowered with this digital platforms. And here is a successful story how the policy can uplift the economic position of the farmers. And AgmarkNet, as you are aware, market information is the biggest weapon in the hands of the traders. Farmers are not. They access the information, say, for example, coffee price in Chicago or London is known to the coffee exporter. A coffee grower will not having any such information. So, example for international trade. Even for internal trade, this market price information dissemination, the government of India through AgmarkNet, the policy change, supporting to disseminate this market information, price information, quantity arrivals, real-time data is available, and farmers are empowered to take subjective decision, informative decision. AgmarkNet portal now has database of about 300 commodities, database of 300 commodities, 2000 varieties. Say paddy means 500 varieties data is available. So 7 digital marketing, allowing selling of the information, providing of the information. In private people participation in agriculture marketing is policy change by the government, and it is helping. And 7 best ops for e-market platforms to the farmers are there in India. And added to this, as I was talking about, 700 and 300 APMCs are regulated markets, all owned by government of respective state governments. Now, as a marketing policy of the central government, they insisted on state government to allow private markets to be established. Say, for example, I have 200 crores investment, ready to invest money. I can take permission from the government. I can establish a APMC, sorry, not APMC, a market, private market, say Reddy market for chilies in Guntur or Badagi in Karnataka or Jaggery in Mandya or pulses in Indore. I can establish by investing this 200 crores, competing with government markets, creating competitive environment. This is a new policy change introduced by Government of India to compete with the monopoly government markets, and this is happening, and it's happened, and slowly this competition is emerging in the market. Added to this, commodity exchanges like Bombay Stock Exchange or National Stock Exchange, commodity exchanges are introduced through Forward Contract Regulation Act 1952. Forward Contract Regulation Act 1952. It was kept in the cold storage for a long time. 10 years back, this was revived, allowed to trade in commodities much before harvesting, 6 months before the commodities are even produced. Say, I can take position in the one of the commodity exchange. Look at the biggest commodity exchange in the world, Chicago Board of Trade in USA. They buy and sell commodities for future delivery, for next 4 months delivery today itself, whether it is petrol, gold, or soybean, or edible oil, food grains, maize. I can buy today for my next requirement 4 months later. This is being done, commodity exchanges. Indirectly, this helps influence the spot markets, say after 120 days or 80 days. This price in the commodity exchange will influence the spot exchange. Look at this market. Product will not come there. Buyer will be, as I told, in Bhopal, seller is in Salem. They quote their sale price and buying price. This exchange will regulate, and transaction is over, and the product will be delivered at the stipulated time, and it is monitored by exchange. This commodity exchange, by Forward Contract Regulation Act, by policy change in the government, is influencing the spot prices, and it is welcome change. So establishment of national important markets is need of the hour. See, local markets are gone. In fact, Karnataka is number 1 in the country to amend the APMC Act, breaking the monopoly that compulsorily every farmer should sell only in the APMC, and all traders, commission agents, brokers, processors, exporters are supposed to buy agricultural commodities only in the APMC after getting a license. They said goodbye to this system, establish a market outside this APMC Act, regulated market, introduce online trading, spot exchange, and Dutch model of trading called supple market. This was done by NDDB, National Dairy Development Board, to deal with perishable commodities. Unfortunately, it was not patronized by our farmers. And always we cannot blame governments, whether state or central government. Farmers' willingness and aptitude towards this revolutionary changes brought in policy issues to encourage farmers' participation, reap the higher portion in the consumer's rupee is lacking. Mainly, we can attribute this to the farmers and their they have no interest. Majority of the farmers. So encourage and government of India to encourage infrastructure, logistics relation at the farmers' grade. They have introduced lot many schemes encouraging farmers field the grading and farm produce, like say small cold storage, grading, cleaning. You see how they have graded this onion. In fact, Maharashtra is #1 in the production of onion in the country. And 60% of onion comes from Maharashtra alone, from Nasik area. We have biggest onion market in Asia called Lasalgaon. They do grading and even they export to the Gulf countries. So encourage farmers to clean, grade, pack at the farm gate, providing required infrastructure. Increase the farmers' share in the consumer's rupee is the objective of the government of India policy, and it is happening by extending some subsidies. It's not production alone that matters. As I have already told, we have already this problem of plenty rather than problem of scarcity. Secondary agriculture, processing, cleaning, grading, packing, branding, processing, exporting, these are the needs of the hour. And the government of India and many state governments have come out with policy changes, legislations supporting such attitude. Look at this one of the handling center in Baramati in Maharashtra, where the cold storage packing unit is there. It's established by support from Government of India through NHM. And farm gate small cold storage to store the grapes as a pre-cooling unit. So policy issue. Look at this packaging material used. All this was able to achieve because of government support. As I was talking about, 84% of small farmers, and they cannot take the produce to the upcountry markets to store the produce in warehouse. Small godowns, rural godown scheme was introduced, a policy of the government to extend 35% subsidy to whoever builds a small godown in rural India, and government gives subsidy. So as a result, the wastage of the food grains in the supply chain has greatly reduced. This is called Rashtriya Gramina Bandara Yojana, encouraging rural godowns, owning by individual farmers to store the produce and avoid the wastage. And yet another policy change in India is encouraging food processing. As you are aware, particularly in fruits and vegetables, 40% of the produce is wasted in the supply chain. 40%. Imagine. And hardly 30% of what we produce, we process. And of course, things are changing because of the policy initiative, support, and establishment of food parks. And in one of the district in Karnataka, they have established a food park where food is processed, packed, supplied to the domestic market and also to the global market for exports. And they have declared particular areas for particular commodities for as export zones, policy change, export zones for a particular commodity. For example, Coorg is declared as a agri-export zone for anthuriums. Just an example. So this policy change is having a lot of impact on secondary agriculture. In establishing inland containers terminal for exports in the harbors, encouraging our exports. Look at this ginger being washed near Kerala and Karnataka border in the open market, where it is cleaned, packed, transported to Mumbai market. And not only the global market, India is a big market, 140 crores, say 150 crores. We have huge market, 3 times bigger than America. So if at all our Indian agriculture want to survive, stabilize, we should provide the best quality products as desired by the consumers. And even the banana that is grown in Andhra Pradesh, particularly Tadapatri and Puluvindula, Kadapa, is being exported to Gulf countries through support from the government and with subsidy. So these things are is possible because of government support. Say APIDA, Government of India organization, they supported in providing technology, providing transport subsidy. This is the policy change. Say chilies, Badagi chilies. You may not believe there is a variety called Badagi chilies grown in Karnataka, and Guntur variety are the two top varieties grown in India. And this Badagi chilies varieties, they export this oil extracted from the chilies. Yesterday, price was 70,000 rupees per quintal, 70,000. And some 3 months back, the price crashed to 15,000. Now it is 70,000. How to stabilize? That's the biggest challenge of supply and demand and season, unseason. There is a need to address to all these issues. Keeping this in view, Government of India in the year 2020 introduced a policy, marketing policy, encourage agriculture marketing to strengthen by three different laws, three different policies, legislations about APMC, about contract farming, and about Essential Commodities Act. Essential Commodities is a draconian act established in 1955 when food grains was not available to the consumers. There was a need to check, regulate storage of food grains. Now the problem is just opposite. We produce so much, even no place to store. We are storing in the open and it's being damaged. So where is the need for draconian, outdated Essential Commodities Act? Government of India removed this Essential Commodities Act in 2020. Unfortunately, the farming community and opposition vehemently opposed, and after a trial for 2 years, they have withdrawn that amendments. But practical reality of importance of this policy legislative provision is, say for example, I am exporter of maize. Say I have orders of 1 lakh quintals of maize to supply to Japan and South Korea. I need to store this 1 lakh quintals in my godown before exporting. This Essential Commodities Act stipulates that no one shall store more than 10,000 quintals. What is this, say, conflicting orders? How I can export? How India can become competitive? Government of India changed this policy. Three important policies. This we call it as APMC Act. The other one is Essential Commodities Act. One more is this Contract Farming Act. And of course, fortunately, many state governments have allowed this Contract Farming Act, and it is happening. And if at all the India has succeeded in capturing 40% of the global market in gherkin exports, courtesy goes to the permitting contract farming. 100% of the gherkin production in India is multiplied by the exporters through contract farming from the farmers and to the processors, so for wholesalers, exporters. And policy support, policy framework is need of the hour. If not, we cannot compete with the global gains. So barrier-free interstate trade and intrastate trade is need of the hour. Before talking of the global trade, the state governments like GST, uniform marketing policy legislation is required. Whether it is opposed by somebody in Punjab or Haryana is different. In the interest of the farmers, it's need of the hour. So government policy and business in finger millet. Say, for example, finger millet is a unique crop grown in southern India, and it is most nutritious, and it is a dryland crop, help to the poorest of the poor, staple food for the poor, even it is designated as a poor man's food. Identifying the importance of this crop, the FAO and ENO declared 2023 as International Year of Millets. And this is the promoting government of India played a major role in doing this. And India, as per our Prime Minister's statement, India needs to work on the millets revolution in order to ensure a nutritious diet and good health. And that is need of the hour. And few states are in the forefront, encouraging this food processing, even exporting organic millets. Lot of happening. Many ITC, Tata people entered. This is the other side of agriculture, what I say, secondary agriculture. Primary agriculture is production. What next after production is secondary agriculture. All these activities, harvesting, cleaning, grading, processing, packing, branding, storing, transportation, selling, exporting, policy support is need of the hour, and we are doing a great job in this direction, promoting consumption, processing, and marketing. And many companies have entered this food processing, and even food habits have changed. As I've already indicated, affluent, rich people, above middle class people, health conscious consumers are preferring organic food, and they don't mind to pay a little more. And encouraging this, Government of India has come out with the organic product policy, organic and natural farming products. Government schemes have introduced, and to encourage certification of food organic products, and top 5 agriculture economies in the world with this sector providing livelihood to 50% of the people. So as a farmer, a child of this soil, have right to no right to damage its health. Only this substantiates Vasant Kumar's statement that we are damaging our ecology, environment, soil, water, everything. So organic farming is the answer. India ranks first in Asia and 5th in the world in organic and natural farming products. First in the world. So government support, encouragement, farmers' participation, certification is biggest challenge in organic product. Everybody says their produce is organic. Who certifies? Credible certification is need of the hour. Say, for example, policy of the government through Coffee Board, branded coffee grown in Araku Valley of Andhra Pradesh and Koraput in Orissa as a tribal coffee, branded across the world. It's gaining lot of consumer patronage and preference, particularly in European market as a tribe. They want to encourage these tribal farmers who grow coffee. This kind of policy shift of branding Indian products at the global market, and forget about global, even in the Indian market, I am ready to pay a little more for this product, tribal coffee or organic product. And this emerging in a big way, and many state governments are looking forward to this kind of revolutionary policy changes to protect the farming, particularly on the other hand, because Indian agriculture is becoming uneconomical, non-profitable, and many younger generation are migrating to urban areas because no money in agriculture. So what is the answer? How to address to this? Government grants and schemes for startups encourage agro-based industries, and there are several incubation centers encourage, and even funding is done to the startups in agri food business. CFTRA in Mysore, or Indian Institute of Horticulture Research, EAS Bangalore, Manage, NAM, Indian Institute of Millets. So almost all government and private initiatives have been taken to encourage startups in agribusiness and secondary agriculture. And there is a scheme called Startup India, and they've established a separate scheme called Skill Development Centers, Kaushal Vikas Yojana in food processing, encourage branding and exclusive funding for Small Industries Development Bank of India, micro, small, and MSME, micro, small, and medium enterprises in food industry with interest subsidy, adding value to the primary agriculture and building agricultural enterprises in rural India needs need of the hour. Secondary agriculture converts farmers into entrepreneurs. This approach, by supporting value addition at farm gate, is need of the hour, and government is coming out with, as I've already told, and our first speaker from UK was talking about common agricultural policy in Europe. That is good. At least we should have common agriculture policy in country, India, where 30 states acting like a separate countries within the country are hampering the uniform trade practices, and it is high time a common agriculture policy for all state governments are brought in. We can draw a leaf from European Union, a common agriculture policy, and we can take this far ahead for success and increase the share of the producers in the consumers' rupee. So introduce the small farmer schemes and European agriculture. I need not repeat this because our first speaker elaborated. Coming to USA, uh, the highest quantity of agricultural products are exports from India is USA. Number one is USA. Number two is China. Number three is United Emirates. Number four is Bangladesh. Whatever agriculture exports we are doing, biggest buyer is USA, followed by China, followed by Gulf countries and Bangladesh. And as you are aware, the conflicting trade policy by USA making us to look at other countries, say goodbye to America, but it will not be a long-term solution. It will be opened, and it is time to look at the European Union to come out with a policy and supportive system to capture the European market. Look beyond USA, look beyond China, and we need to go for this organic. Brazil, one of the most prosperous, agriculturally prosperous country in the world. Name the commodity, they are the dominant players. And they are also into the doldrums. They are facing lot of problems, but their policy is zero hunger strategy and capture the global market. National policy for food and nutrition security was introduced in the Brazil, and this is all I want to say about the agriculture policy framework, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, thank you, sir. Because
Thank you so much for such details and comprehensive address to the audience. Now we are going to the last stage of our today's program. May I request Professor Dr. Mini, Senior Professor of Law, National Law University, NUALS, Kochi. Before, ma'am, we proceed with you with the concluding remarks. We would like to introduce you to our audience. My colleague, Ms. Sirish, is going to introduce you, then you may conclude.
Good evening, ma'am. It's a privilege to introduce you today, a distinguished academician and a key research person behind this colloquium today. Professor Mini is a professor of law at National University of Advanced Legal Sciences, Kochi. Beyond her teaching role, she holds several critical administrative positions at the university. She serves as a director of Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies and is the director in charge of two significant research hubs, that is the Center for Competition Law and Policy and the Center for Consumer Protection Law and Policy. As a scholar, Professor Mini has dedicated much of her work to addressing pressing social legal challenges, and her recent research on and publication include public health and human rights, which include comparative studies on legal framework and the right to health, the socio-economic impacts of COVID-19 pandemic on Kerala's villages and urban suburbs, constitutional morality and transformative constitutionalism, exploring how legal values evolved to protect individual rights. Further, ma'am is a strong advocate for academic excellence. She has led several national seminars on research integrity and publication ethics, guiding the next generation of scholars on how to uphold the high standards of original legal research. Ma'am also serves as the editor in chief for the NUALS Competition Law e newsletter, fostering a platform for dialogue on global antitrust and data protection issues. Ma'am, we are pleased to have you here with us today and we are eager to hear you. Please, ma'am.
A warm good evening to one and all present here. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay. The Hon'ble Vice-Chancellors of Mysuru University and NUALS, Professor Lokanath Sir and GB Reddy Sir, and our keynote speaker, Professor Nicholas D. Sedeler, and Vasant Kumar Sir, Venkat Reddy Sir, and all others present here. Thank you for the wonderful presentations by Professor Nicholas Sedeler Sir on the overview of the common agricultural policy of EU, and Dr. Vasant Kumar Sir on agricultural policy in India from populism to pragmatism, and Venkat Reddy Sir on the economic aspects of Indian agricultural policy. So the foregoing discussion on this underscores the complexity and centrality of agricultural governance in the era marked by climate uncertainty, global market integration, and evolving socio-economic priorities. Agriculture today is no longer confined to questions of production and productivity. It is intrinsically linked with sustainability, food security, trade competitiveness, rural livelihoods, and environmental stewardship. The comparative perspective between India and European Union reveals both convergence and divergence in policy objectives. While EU's common agriculture policy emphasizes income support, environmental conditionalities, and market stabilization through a well-institutionalized framework, India's agriculture policy remains more fragmented, driven by concerns of food security, small and marginal farmers' welfare, and price support mechanisms. These differences are shaped by distinct historical trajectories, agrarian structures, and levels of economic development. Nevertheless, shared challenges such as climate resilience, sustainable resource use, and fair trade practices provide fertile ground for policy learning and cooperation. Adopting a pragmatic approach to agricultural policy emerges as a unifying theme. Pragmatism demands moving beyond ideological rigidity towards context-sensitive, evidence-based interventions that balance farmer welfare with fiscal sustainability and environmental responsibility. For India, this implies rationalizing subsidies, strengthening institutional support systems, promoting technological innovation, and integrating climate-smart agriculture without undermining the socio-economic security of vulnerable farming communities. For the India-EU engagement, pragmatism lies in aligning trade, sustainability standards, and developmental priorities through constructive dialogue rather than prospective conditionalities. So, agriculture policy must be viewed as a dynamic and adaptive instrument of governance. India's agriculture policy, while rooted in constitutional commitments to social justice and food security, must increasingly engage with the global frameworks such as those of the EU to address transboundary challenges. A balanced synthesis of domestic priorities, pragmatic policy design, and international cooperation can contribute to a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable agricultural future. Such an approach not only strengthens the national agrarian systems but also reinforces agriculture's role as a cornerstone of economic stability, social equity, and environmental sustainability. In conclusion, the discussion of India-EU agricultural policy framework clearly demonstrates that contemporary agricultural challenges transcend national boundaries and the disciplinary silos. Issues such as climate change, food security, trade regulation, technological innovation, and farmers' welfare require nuanced, evidence-based responses that can only emerge through sustained intellectual engagement and comparative inquiry. Academic collaborations between Indian and European institutions assumes particular significance in this context. The India-EU interface offers a valuable platform for cross-learning where diverse policy experiences, regulatory models, and empirical research traditions can inform more balanced and context-sensitive agricultural governance. While the EU's structured policy mechanisms and sustainability-oriented frameworks provide important insights, India's experience with smallholder agriculture, food security imperatives, and inclusive policy design contributes equally valuable perspectives to global agricultural discourse. A pragmatic approach to agricultural policy is strengthened when supported by collaborative research, joint capacity building initiatives, and continuous academic dialogue. Such collaboration facilitates the exchange of best practices, development of innovative policy tools, and generation of locally relevant yet globally informed solutions. Universities, research institutions, and policy think tanks may play a crucial role in bridging the gap between theory and practice by translating academic knowledge into actionable policy recommendations. Ultimately, academic collaborations fosters mutual understanding, policy coherence, and long-term cooperation between India and European Union. By nurturing interdisciplinary and cross-regional partnerships, academia can contribute meaningfully to resilient agricultural systems, sustainable development, and equitable rural transformation. In this sense, collaborative scholarship is not merely an academic exercise, but a strategic imperative for shaping adaptive, inclusive, and future-ready agricultural policies. Today's colloquium is one of the initiatives for such collaboration. We are planning to conduct a 3-day program in January 2026. I take this opportunity to invite Professor Sadelath to NUALS for leading the program. I hope we will continue more academic discourses and collaborative research, which will definitely contribute to the bigger target, attaining sustainable development goals. With this, I conclude. Thank you for everyone for patient listening.
Thank you, ma'am. With this program, we come to the conclusion of the program. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Adil Muhammad Said to propose word of the thanks. Mr. Adil, over to you.
Am I audible?
Yes, please proceed.
First and foremost, I must thank Professor Dr. M.S. Benjamin for presiding over this session with such grace. We are also deeply thankful to Professor Dr. G.B. Reddy, the Hon'ble Vice-Chancellor of NUALS, and Professor Dr. Lokanath N, the Hon'ble Vice-Chancellor of the University of Mysore. Their leadership and support for such academic initiatives has provided us the foundation to explore these avenues of law. I also thank M.K. Savita ma'am, the Registrar, University of Mysore. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to Professor Dr. Nicholas for his enlightening keynote address. Your extensive international expertise has provided us with a valuable perspective on the CAP framework. Additionally, I also thank Dr. Vasant Kumar for his pragmatic and future-looking insights into what should be the agriculture policy. We are also extremely grateful to Professor Dr. Venkata Reddy for his comprehensive analysis of the Indian agriculture landscape. My thanks also goes to Dr. Mini ma'am for her efforts in bringing this event to fruition, as well as her concluding remarks. Finally, I want to acknowledge the coordinator, Mr. Saeed Kudrat Hashimi, for his meticulous planning of the colloquium. I also thank the administrative and the technical staff of the University of Mysore for ensuring the smooth conduct of this online session. Most importantly, I thank the participants for their time and thoughtful engagement in this session. Thank you, and I hope you all had a good learning experience. Thank you.
Thank you. We reached to the conclusion of the program, and we have shared the Google form, feedback form. The participants are requested to fill up that form so that they can get a certificate of participation.